This is Broke Money Hustle. And now, here's Broke Money Hustle with Traco and Eric.
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to Broke Money Hustle, the podcast that encourages people who are broke, who get a little bit of money, maybe those who have a side hustle, to grow that money, to invest it, whether that's in the stock market or at least squirrel it away in something like Acorn's account or some gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, wherever you can, other than putting it under your mattress and other than putting it in a traditional bank. We try to educate ourselves and bring you along the way. We are not professional financial advisors. Please talk to somebody like a Charles Schwab or Fidelity Investments. If you've got a big bunch of money and you're looking to invest it, don't go by what we say, because we're going to make mistakes. And today is kind of talking about mistakes. We have a special guest with us, Varian. I'll be bringing him on in a little bit. He's a serial entrepreneur just like us, has a multimedia company that's doing gangbusters, especially with overseas listeners. And you should be hearing us on that network, the IndieVolt network, right now. So we'll be happy to have him on and talk to him a little bit about his various side hustles and his experience with investing in stock in just a little bit. TJ, how you doing, man? Good to see you again.
Doing good. The market's slowly making its way back to somewhere looking a lot happier than where we've been. So that's always a bonus.
Yeah, today was a pretty good day. Last week, I'm not going to lie, was detrimental to my mental and physical health.
Yes.
And we had a really big downturn. And I'm happy to say that almost all of the losses from last week have come back to me. So that's great. Are you still down a little bit, or you got some serious gains?
I'm down. Today, I'm up $15, but overall, from what I have total invested, I'm down around $40. But it's starting to it climb back up pretty significantly today. So I'm kind of hoping that pretty soon all the red in my portfolio will turn back to green, and I'll have some extra cash in there to buy some stuff.
Nice. Yeah. I was down almost 200 last week, and I think I'm only down $15 today. So awesome. I'm happy to see all that money come back in, and hopefully we'll see some more. We got a lot of big news that is actually getting pumped out. We've heard that the Federal Reserve is going to start buying individual corporate bonds, and as we learned in a previous episode, a bond is just a fancy IOU, which means I promise to pay this in the future. The future. So what will happen is a company who needs to raise capital, they can either sell shares or they can issue bonds. Bonds are kind of like a share. You're basically buying the debt at a cheap price so they can raise capital in the short term, and then they will pay you back plus interest at a larger sum down the line. At least that's the promise. That's the IOU. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how bonds work. And so the Fed has announced that it's going to start. It was doing just ETFs, exchange traded funds, that focus just on these bonds. But now it's going to start buying individual corporate bonds. And this includes companies like Volkswagen, Verizon, Sprint, Apple Computer, Toyota, and a bunch of others. Unfortunately, Genius Brands did not make the list, so we're not going to see that stock get pumped anytime soon.
That explains the negative 40. I'm still down.
Yeah, I made a comment on our Twitter, which you can follow at Broke Money, that Genius Brands might as well be carved in stone. I mean, it's like Genius Brands down today. That should just be written in stone, or I could get that tattooed and it would never expire.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into some of our stories. And we are going to bring our guest, Varian, in. Again, he is a serial entrepreneur, founder of IndieVolt, which is an independent entertainment media conglomerate. It has a Roku channel, an online radio station that boasts 20 to almost 40,000 listeners every day from various countries, and also comic books. He has Last Call Comics, and a new beverage coming out, and a bunch of other cool things. So let's bring him in and talk to him. How you doing, bud?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah. Thanks for that opening. Makes it sound a lot more successful than I am. I want to play that back for my mother so she can understand how good I'm doing. It's listening to you guys talk about stock is exactly. I should have listened to you guys years ago.
Oh, what happened?
I just bet on the wrong stocks is all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll let you guys get into that though. You guys go direct the show. Go ahead. I'm here for you guys. So.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about this because we've had some definite up and down journeys. We like to do a segment every once in a while called Date, Marry, Kill, which we're looking at a stock that we may want to add to our portfolio on a long-term basis with a date. Marry means we're adding it as a long-term relationship, like something like Ford, which has been a great performer for us. And dating is basically speculative. We're looking at speculating a stock. I got burned, and I guess I'll go first since I've got the stock up here on the screen with a company called Lias Energy Incorporated. Let me bring up the screen here. So this is Lias Energy Incorporated. The ticker symbol on that is LLEX. And today I found out that my 83 shares in LLEX now belongs to a company that's declaring bankruptcy and is being delisted by the stock market. So, yeah. So I don't have a lot in this. This was a date. This was let's try it and see. And it was a really cheap stock to get. I bought into it, I think, at around 38 cents a share. It's since dropped to 28 or 27 cents a share. And it's had no jump today because that's why it's being delisted. They're in a bankruptcy. I think it's Chapter 11 bankruptcy. I tried to sell early this morning and Robinhood rejected the sale. So now I have around $22 in stock that I don't know if I'm going to see that $22 again, because basically what happens is when an event happens to a stock, Robinhood, and they're good about educating you on the back end of this because I can clicking in the messages. Why is this happening? Oh, here, read this. So I read this and it says they're trying to decide how this is going to affect shareholders. So until a decision is made, you can't buy LLEX, you can't sell LLEX. So until they make a decision on how this is going to affect stockholders, whether or not they do some sort of buyback on shares or we're just, hey, out the money, remains to be determined. But again, this leads credence to where if you're going to invest in the stock market, don't invest more than you're willing to lose. And if you don't take your profits, which means if the stock earns some money, you sell enough to take the amount that you've earned and you just you can either keep playing with your initial investment or you can keep your profits in there and take out your initial investment. So you're really not losing anything. You're just investing the gains. Two ways of doing that. But I wasn't quick enough. I wasn't on the ball. I didn't do my due diligence, my DD, and missed the opportunity to sell this before it went into some kind of litigation. So that's my attempted murder, my attempted kill of a stock, and it's going to be on my books now until they decide what to do with it. Now, I know this happens. This is something you just have to deal with and make it as a learning trend. And now, TJ, you've got a stock that you're talking about here that you got burned by in a different way. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let me pull up the ticker here, and I'll share my screen. There we go. Do a screen share. That one. All right. Can you guys see it?
You were on.
All right. Cool. All right. So Workhorse, right? Before we get to where it's at now, we'll kind of check out where it was. So June 5th, I've heard of Workhorse before. It's in the automotive field, which is, something I'm familiar with and everything. So I bought it for $331. I'm like, oh, it's a reasonably priced stock, and it's automotive. It's something I felt comfortable with. And then me being impatient the way I am, like about 4 days later, when it didn't shoot up to $5, I sold it because I was like, well, it doesn't pay any dividends. It's been almost a week. Because this was around the time frame when everything we bought was going up like $1 or $2 right after we bought it. So I was like, well, it's not one of my great performing stocks. I'll just it got up 20 cents or something, and I sold it. So and I was like, oh, there's no dividends, yada yada. So I got out of there because me, I'm squeamish. I'm like, it's not moving up. I better sell it before it goes below what I paid for it. And then if you scroll up to where it's at today, it's ended today at around $15 a share. So not only should I have held on to what I had, I probably should have doubled or tripled down on it. And
yeah, no kidding.
Bought a ton of it. Because it makes sense. They do a lot of things like in the automotive and aircraft area and everything. And right now, a lot of things are being delivered. A lot of items and everything are still getting moved around. So it makes sense that it went up a ton. So that was one I should have held on to. There's some other ones too where I was looking up stocks I've sold either at a loss or 20 cents a share I made off of them, and almost all of them, if I would have held out a little bit longer, like I had a Rocket Pharma. If I would have held out until now, I could have recouped my money and I think made $1 off of it. But I sold it when it was down because it was down, and I'm like, well, I better sell it before it goes down any farther. So and yet somehow I end up holding on to Genius brands through everything.
This is turning into a why Genius Brands has sucked today show.
Seriously, right?
Because I know I bought back into Genius Brands on a down low after I'd read the story that Arnold Schwarzenegger is involved with the company. Mm-hmm. He's signed a big, huge deal to do voice acting and to basically he's a shareholder and a funder, investor into Genius Brands content. And I don't even think they've launched their streaming service yet because they're supposed to be doing children's educational, it's right up his alley, like encouraging good habits of eating and all this other educational mumbo jumbo content. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a good solid investment, but nothing's happened to it. So maybe this is a really long hold and it'll pay off and be a $50, $60 stock, by Christmas. But
I hope so.
I don't know. We keep having this down. It's like, oh, hey, we have a little bit of hope. Let's buy into it. Oh, okay. But and your issue with Workhorse, I mean, that's the story that hindsight's always 20/20. Oh, exactly. I remember when Facebook launched its stock, it was $2.38 a share. I wanted to buy some. I didn't want to put a ton of money because I thought $2. It came out at $2.38. I wasn't thinking correctly. I wasn't thinking the right things. I was looking at it as how do they make money? Is this going to be worth it? I might just lose money on this. I wasn't thinking of the fact that they have most of the developed world is a member of Facebook. What is it, like hundreds of millions of users? They're basically the CIA was a principal investor in Facebook. Zuckerberg is related to the Rothschild family or some nonsense like. So yeah, it's like NWO, World World Government. I mean, it's a giant evil monster, so it's going to make money. Yeah. I should have thought of it in those terms and went ahead and bought, 100 shares at $2.38 a piece. They're over 200 now. I mean, it would have been a great moneymaker, but those are the only types of opportunities that you see in hindsight. Yeah. And our guest, Varian, you invested in a company at one point, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you how I got into that, guys.
Well, tell us what the company is so we can bring the stock ticker up.
Wizard World Entertainment, WIZD is the stock. It's I've had that stock for years now.
Okay, so what did you buy it at? How did you buy it? And
Oh, gotcha.
tell us your story.
I can't remember what I bought it at. I know it was more than what it is now. But the reason how I got involved was because of I was working at General Motors, and General Motors had decided to give all of its employees some stock options. And so my mother had stock options. I did as well. And, I noticed that I had a little money. So I said, hey, this stock market stuff seems super easy. And foolishly, using E-Trade, I got in with Sony. And I think it was right before Sony launched the PSP. Well, the day Sony launched the PSP, Sony stock shot up. That was one of their handheld portable systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm rich. And so quickly, foolishly, I sold it, got some money, very happy. And I'm like, I'll just invest in all the pop culture stuff that I like already, that I utilize already. And, that should be great. And I remember looking and seeing what was cheap. And Wizard World was cheap. It was, I want to say it was like $4 or $5 at the time. And I got in, and I gotta tell you guys, it was it's been volatile. Yeah. Eric has it up on the screen there. It looks like the COVID curve. It really does. It's it's man.
Yeah, so we're looking at a full year of it for those of you who are just listening on Indie Volt or on the podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you're hanging out with us live on YouTube and on our Facebook page, Broke Money Hustle. So we're looking back in time to January 2nd. It was still like $4.98 a share.
Which is the highest it's been in a while.
Currently holding at $1.20 a share.
Yeah. Now I got out of some of it back in January at the behest of Zimmerman. And he said, get out. And I did get out. Not all the way out, but
do you remember how many shares you had?
I think I had about 60.
Okay.
And I without having, I don't have access to that computer, which means I need to put that account back on his new computer I built. I need to do that. But I got out, and I'm like, okay, well, you're right. I'll tell you guys this. I think that pop culture stocks are fun, especially because we utilize them. We think they're the best things ever, but they are not. And I remember shortly after that, Wizard launched a campaign through, I forget the name of the company, but they were looking for $500 investments in stock. And you would get all these special little perks like an owner's gate that you'd be able to go through. And you get discounted tickets and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, well, but none of that was available to me. None of those perks were available to me because I was, an old customer. I hate to use the word customer, but you know what I mean. I feel like a customer. I get treated very poorly. I want to see the manager. And I've made the joke before that I'm afraid that I'm going to wake up one day and own the company.
Be the last sole stockholder.
Yeah. I'm going to wake up one day, my phone's going to be ringing and I own what? Which would be cool. It could be kind of cool. But I do like Wizard. I mean, man, I've been, I was going to, because of Sony giving me that false hope that I could do this. I remember I was going to go invest in Marvel. And could not because Marvel had went missing off the stock market for me. I couldn't find it. It was MVL at one point. Could not find it. And then then Disney bought them. And I'm like, man, if I would have went in like a year earlier on Marvel, I'd have been a happy man. But yeah.
Well, now you can own Marvel if you own a little bit of Disney.
A little bit of Disney is a lot of money.
Well, that's one of the things that we really like about things like Webull and Robinhood is it involves fractional investing.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've done, and I think the closest to a pop culture company, well, I got two stocks that are really pop culture, and that's NVIDIA and AMC Theaters.
Mm-hmm.
I love going to the movies.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that I just cherish. Loved it ever since I was a kid. So the fact that I can call myself an investor in AMC Theaters, I just get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
The stock was as high as like $7 recently. Now that we have the thing that should not be Scare Part 2, the Armageddon, it's gone down again, but they're going to start reopening in July 30th. Really looking forward to it. I'm going to definitely be there. I definitely want to see Tenet. I think that movie looks great. And maybe the three of us can all go together and hang out at AMC.
That'd be cool.
Six feet apart.
Yeah.
6 feet apart. And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But that's me buying a company that is more of a vanity purchase because I love going to the movies. I grew up a poor fat kid in the middle of Missouri on a farm, so going to the movies was the equivalent of some city slicker kid going to Six Flags or Disney World. That was my big highlight thing that I could do. And I still feel that excitement. It's the only place that takes me out of this wretched lifestyle, this wretched world, puts me someplace else for a short time, and I feel like I've had a genuine mental break.
Yeah,
exactly.
I posted a picture today on my Facebook of the hallway, like going down toward going down the hall, the aisle where they, the theaters are all, you got your theater doors 5, 4, 3, and I was like, you feel a little bit of a rush when you see that, like, oh man, I missed that. I have a question for you guys though.
Sure.
With a stock like Wizard, and you see it, and everyone here at some point has been involved in comic books. Wizard Entertainment, for those who don't know, they do pop culture conventions. They used to have a magazine. They no longer do the magazine, but they, at one point they were, I think it's fair to say, the TMZ of comic books, basically.
Yeah. Back when they had the magazine out, and they covered the industry. They were like where you went for industry news. There were a couple others like Hero Magazine and a couple others, but Wizard was like the tops, and they had conventions. Now they just have the conventions, and they've cut back. They went back from 25 shows to 16. Now they're down to like 6 or 7 shows a year. But when you see a stock like this, what do you think is the biggest contributor to it dropping? And do you think the current situation is having an effect on that? Because it really hasn't moved.
Well, certainly the current situation is definitely having an effect on the fact that there's no hope. There's no consumer confidence in comic book conventions being a thing. Right now, all of the industry is trying to feel its way into what it's going to do. There's all these virtual online shows. Wizard's been really trying hard with their online virtual experiences. They also offer a online storefront that anybody can get into by emailing them because they're looking for content. This is something I've thought about just as an extra possible source of income. But I think overall, company-wise, they've always kind of struggled to find their voice. And unfortunately, they've been receiving a lot of bad press. They've always been like the butt end of jokes for people who are very cynical in this industry. And it hasn't served them well as on a PR level. So I think if we ever get to a point where we can do conventions again, I think they're probably in the best position to make a go of it again, because they seem to have no problem coming up with the funding. They've got plenty of, they've had plenty of investment opportunities. I think they just haven't quite found their voice yet.
I get quarterly reports, and I gotta tell you, some days, you guys ever catch me with an attitude, just ask me the Wizard report to come out. I'm like, yeah, it came out.
Exactly.
What's it to you?
And Wizard, I don't think they really own anything they could sell. Like the company became insolvent and had to sell off things they owned to take care of debt. They don't really own anything other than the Wizard name.
It's basically a brand.
Exactly.
And that's pretty much all they have going.
They heavily invested into Con TV, which I'm not sure if that's a publicly traded company or not, but I remember that their like association with Con TV was, the phrasing used was, Wizard is heavily invested into Con TV. And I know there are some convention exclusive videos with some people that we know on Con TV, and it's a streaming service. It's much like it's not as good as, but it's much like Indie Volt TV. But they got movies on. They got anime. They got a bunch of different things. But it is a. I know they had invested heavily in it, and I also I'm a Con TV subscriber. But yeah, I know they were heavily involved with Wizard at one point. Trico has told me to get out of Wizard as soon as possible too, as well.
Yeah, it might be a good time now. Like when a couple weeks ago when I sent on my Fidelity account that I never use, I set it up because on Robinhood they didn't have any Wizard stock, and Wizard was like 58 cents a share, and I'm like, well, no, man, for $50 I could own most of the company. So,
okay, to answer, sorry, man. Go ahead and finish up.
So I don't know. I mean, if I would have bought it at 58, it's at a $1.20 now. Could have doubled my money on it. So
it's been down to 10 cents before.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye out for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so to answer Varian's question, yeah, they are a publicly traded company, but not as Con TV.
Okay.
Their parent company is. So if you look at the parent company, so I looked up Con TV. Parent company is Cinedigm. Yeah, Cinedigm Corp.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a Chinese company that is currently on the NASDAQ CIDM, trading for $1.81 a share. And that you're looking at a 50.55% down today. So yeah, there's a chart for it.
But the
Look at the six month trend. We're at 40 cents for a long time. We spike, so it's actually been going up. 274 was its high. So yeah, you could invest in the parent company of Con TV if you wanted to.
The company was founded by a guy named Bud Mayo. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Bud Mayo. People also search for Genius brands. I doubt it.
So what do you guys do when you see a stock tanking? I mean, like we know what TJ does.
Yeah, I double down. I say, yeah, I'll take more Genius brand.
Just on that one though, the others he panic sells.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it depends on. And now I got a good story to bring in my kind of thing that I really wanted to share story wise today. I try to do my due diligence, DD. Try to do research on the company. If it's a company like NVIDIA, Netflix, Apple, something that's been around a while, something that's not going to go away, then when it's down, I don't worry about it. That's an opportunity to buy more.
Exactly.
Some of these date stocks, and my biggest date stock that I've pretty much married to now, it was kind of a shotgun wedding based on last week's performance. But Ideanomics, IDEX. This is a stock that I found this wonderful trader on Twitter called named Yates Investing. He's just a regular blue collar guy. I'm working on trying to get him as an interviewee for the show. But there's a whole group around him. Others like Stan the Trading Man. There's a penny stock hustler or something like that. And these are all a group of Twitter users who share their research that they do into stocks. Most of them look for these low-end penny stocks, and the penny stock can have high volatility. So these big-time investors like these guys, they're sinking thousands of dollars into a 30-cent stock that based on their research they're looking for a pop. And so something like Ideanomics, when it was first mentioned in this group, it was like 60 cents a share. I didn't get involved. I didn't find Yates and the other guys until there was about $1.16 a share. And I bought 4 shares at $1.16, and then I kind of watched. And I looked back on some of the other plays that these guys have been putting out. And I kind of came to the conclusion that these guys seem legit. It doesn't look like they're fake pumping anything just to try to get the price up. They're actually doing research and making and reaching out to these companies and actually learning more about these companies. So it's a good way to mine information when you don't want to sit there and just do all of it yourself, but you're finding other people. And you just kind of slowly learn who's more trustworthy. So with Ideanomics, that was kind of my test stock to see if this would work. And it really did really well. Initially, it went up to almost $4 a share at one time. Let me bring up the stock ticker right now. And again, that's IDEX if you're listening to the broadcast. And what Ideanomics does, now they've had a little bit of a rough history because I've learned more about the company, especially since this big controversy happened last week that helped tank the stock. Well, not really tank, but it really dropped. So basically, Ideanomics kind of started out as a company that has multiple things that it does. And they really, for the first few years in the company, they didn't really have a focus. When they brought in CEO Alf Poor, they have a focus. The focus is electronic vehicles. One of the major investors in this company is Shane McMahon,
Hey,
and the McMahon family.
that's cool.
So that's another one of the reasons, because I'm a big wrestling buff. If you know my artwork, you know I'm into wrestling. That's another reason what the McMahon family, they don't really do losing propositions.
Exactly.
And they're monsters of business, basically. They will step on things to grow their business. And it's just, you get that if you watch the WWE brand, that they're really good at what they do. So I'm betting on Shane O'Mac to be, not picking a loser. I forget the other gentleman's name. He's an American of Chinese descent, but he's an American. So Alf Poor, he's kind of this cleanup hitter. This is his 9th startup company. He's come in and he's turned the companies around and made them winners. And so he's focused this on EV, electric vehicles. They have a three-front attack, and one of the things that people try to dog on Ideanomics for is that they're just a middleman. This is a company based out of New York. They have offices in China. They have offices, I believe, in the Philippines as well, and offices, of course, here in the States, and some other areas. But they're trying to focus on selling electronic vehicles for other producers like Tesla. Nikola might be a future partner. Other companies that offer electric vehicles, and they focus on fleet vehicles too, getting fleets for whoever. So they're a sales force. They also have energy. So they have this whole trying to make battery power affordable and accessible to manufacturers of these vehicles. And so they're kind of like a facilitator of the entire EV market right now. There's a lot of big things that are supposedly on the horizon. But what happened was you had a couple of companies. Heidelberg was one of them, and there was another one I don't remember. But at any rate, they did come out with some responses to this. And I'll kind of give you an idea. So Hindenburg, not Heidelberg, I'm sorry. Hindenburg Research and J Capital published negative reports under the guise of research. Now, this is coming from Ideanomics investor newsletter, basically, because they're answering these charges. And they claim that these are self-published, self-interest research that contains certain inaccuracies and misstatements, which Ideanomics refutes based on the facts. And they're trying to make short selling campaigns to pressure the share price so they can have a maximum benefit. So these are companies that buy up a bunch of shares that short them. And if you're shorting, TJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're shorting, you're betting the company is going to tank, that the share price is going to go down. So you're kind of betting that it's going to hit a certain price, which would allow you to sell and make money on the failure of the company. Is that am I right?
Yeah. As far as I understand it, you're correct.
Okay. So there was already a self-interest of these two companies to make this company tank and its stock to drop. And so then they started publishing reports, and these included images that showed a possible showroom that had 2018 banners on them. They were trying to say they had a fake showroom. And Alfred Poor, the CEO, he answered these things by showing pictures of the actual thing at night with a light lit up, showing, they're coming out and showing purchases, orders that are coming in for EV vehicles. So for a little while, the IDX stock went down to about $1.35 a share, and now it's back up to $2.05. And I kept doubling down. Every time I saw there was a downturn, I bought into the stock. So I think my overall, I'm sitting at around 200 shares of Ideanomics. I'm the most heavily invested in this company, and I'm betting on it as a long-term investment because I'm thinking electronic vehicles are the future. I know Nikola is working on EV vehicles as well as fuel cell, which are hydrogen-powered vehicles, which is also exciting because they produce wastewater basically, because you're splitting hydrogen, taking the energy, and water is the waste is water. So they're perfecting the work on that technology, but they haven't sold anything yet, so their stock is still speculative. Tesla's been doing gangbusters, and I think they're going to be offering more and more. We're seeing a lot more investment in electronic vehicles, self-driving cars. Amazon, who is a huge company, global company now, they just bought a smaller company that just does autonomous vehicles. And Elon Musk tweeted out copycat or something like that, claiming that Jeff Bezos is copying off of him. So we're on the forefront of a new generation in the automotive industry and overall energy with autonomous driving, electronic vehicles, and the such. So it's a great ground floor. So I'm in this for the long haul, betting this is going to be a $10 to $30 stock within a few years. And so I look for dips. I buy the dips. And I'm just, again, you're hoping that this company is around for a while. Yeah. But what I've seen and what I've read from the investor relations and what I've seen from the CEO on Twitter, he did an interview with Yates Investing and Stan the Trading Man, and was, this is like investor relations 101 with actual investors, not like a board meeting and here's the PDF that we produced. No, he's like doing a live, taking questions with people like me who are just sort of invested in the company a little bit, along with heavy hitters, and we're just trying to figure out if this is a long-term investment, and he's been very forthcoming. It's been very refreshing. So that's kind of my story. I rode this. There was a moment I was about ready to panic sell, but I just went and I found some extra money in savings, another $50, and I bought on the lowest point that I thought it was going to be for that day, and I bought a little bit more. I have some in my Webull account, and so that's kind of my story because we're sharing our stories of investing. I'm still down overall, but it's trending upward, and I'm happy to see that.
Oh yeah. I should have mentioned that that GM stock that I once owned, General Motors, that was before they went bankrupt.
Okay.
So I got a check in the mail, and it was like pennies. It's like, here you go. That's what's left.
We declared bankruptcy, so here's what's left.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. It was probably under $5.
Okay.
I was sad.
Yeah, and bankruptcy is complicated, but with corporate bankruptcy, they try to do everything to save the company and restructure the company. So they'll cash outs to shareholders. They'll issue new stock. Sometimes they'll do a reverse split where I had owned stock in, I forget what it was, but I only owned fractional shares, and it just disappeared one day because they had made a reverse split. So if you owned, like, say, one share, if you own 20 shares, now you own one share. And it's a way of restructuring to make the stock more valuable. And, my stock just kind of disappeared, and I don't know what's going to, I haven't seen anything in my account yet to tell me I've gotten the money back, but it was another $20 here or there. So
I was told to wait until Wizard does the reverse split. So am I hearing that's not a good thing, or?
I haven't heard that before, but it could be a good thing. It just depends on the overall strategy of the company, if it's going to be successful. Some companies have split their stock the other way. The traditional way is like you turn one share into 20 shares because the stock continues to grow. And then some stocks elect not to do that. That's why Amazon is $2,700 a share
Yeah.
instead of $200 a share. It's because they've never split the stock.
And why should they?
I mean, it's a choice. It's a choice to make because you split the stock so you can offer the stock at a lower price to incentivize more people buying. There's really no reason to do this right now because the Fed is the one doing all the buying, and they're going to pay whatever. It's unlimited. They're saying there's no ceiling to this thing. So
Well, they're printing their own money right now.
yeah, they're printing monopoly money to buy stuff to say that it has value, so that we all trust that it has value. So we have this zombie fictional market that we're all trying to make money off of right now.
Exactly.
And I really want to stress that the stock market is not running on fundamental economics. It's not running on any economics. It's running on Keynesian debt, only debt borrowing, debt issuing. It's all just IOUs basically being circulated around, and we all think we own something. This is why I stress people, while we are agreeing that the dollar is currency that has value, use those dollars and buy gold, buy silver, buy something that's going to be worth something when all of that goes away. Because in the history of governments, currency, this has never worked. It didn't work in 2008, and the bubble that we're creating right now makes 2008 look like a bull market. We're looking at a potential serious crash if they stop pumping the market. They can't stop pumping the market. So I think what they're trying to do is to keep the market artificially afloat until the real economy, the Main Street economy, as they call it, is able to resurface. But for various reasons, including politics and whatnot, we keep getting tapped down, whether that's COVID, whether it's civil unrest, or whatever it is. Businesses keep getting held down. So the true economy can't excel. We're not in control of this. We're just trying to make a little bit of money off the side of it. And I want to recommend, I get nothing for this, but I want to recommend Glint. If you go to glintpay.com, and there'll be a link in the description. I just put my first batch of money into buying gold this way. What it allows you to do is you transfer money off of your debit card or your bank to your Glint account in US dollars. Then you can use those US dollars to buy physical gold held in an actual bank vault that's not tied to any government. This is a private bank vault, actual gold, which you can then request to have them send you the gold if you want. But you get a debit card, a MasterCard credit card, that you can then spend that gold. So worst case scenario, and this is, again, I'm not purposely being hyperbolic or hyperbole, but worst case scenario with this, let's say the dollar completely collapses. It's worth nothing. This is Weimar Republic 2.0. You need $1,000 to buy a loaf of bread all of a sudden. The money that you've saved now, according to them, now this is them saying this, no matter what happens to whatever currency you're in, if you've bought in gold with them, it's still there. And then as long as you can use this credit card, you can spend that gold and feed your family. So I would encourage, this is incremental. You can buy fraction gold. I just bought like 4 or 5 grams. That's all I could afford to move from one savings account into this. You can buy it fractionally. You can buy it $10 at a time. Whatever it is, you're still saving real money that will still be money, even if our current currency and governments become piles of ash. We'll still all kind of agree that gold and silver is money, because It always has been.
And it's kind of like bringing back the gold standard. I mean, for yourself, since the government got rid of the gold standard, it's kind of a way to kind of bring that back and have that security of, knowing that your money is kind of banked by gold, or backed by gold instead of a Federal Reserve note that they're just printing out randomly now.
Yeah, and this is unique in the way because you're actually spending gold. Like, you can hold money 2 ways in this account. You can hold US dollars, which you use to buy the gold, and then you can hold the gold. So I'm just using this I'm not going to keep any US dollars in there. I'm just moving US dollars in to buy gold with. And when you use the card, you're spending the gold that you have in this account. So it's a really kind of a neat, 21st century way of spending actual money, not currency. So again, the link will be in the description. I encourage anybody who wants to save money for the future, put $10 a month away at a time. It's a bit of a pain in the butt because I had to call my bank and say, this is not fraud. Please allow this transaction to occur. And I get the same thing if I'm buying cryptocurrency. I have to tell the bank, hey, look, no, this is me. I'm doing this. Because they don't want you to do this with your money. They want to keep your money there because when you give your bank money, you're loaning them your assets that they can then borrow out to whatever. And they're not guaranteed to keep it. They don't have to keep any currency in the safe at all. They don't have to keep any gold in the safe at all. So if there was a run on the banks, like we've been down this road before, the ATM can be dry. So keep some cash on hand, buy some gold and silver so that you can survive worst case scenario. That's all I'm saying.
I learned, I didn't learn, but I was reminded last night that the Federal Reserve sounds like a government-owned bank, but it is not. It is not. And tampering with those rules and tampering with who owns the Federal Reserve and how the money is produced and distributed is how, if you're a president, is how you get compromised to a permanent end. And the whole documentary on I think it's on Amazon about it. I'm like, wow, okay, so don't mess with the Federal Reserve. I do have a question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
And the reason why shows like this are so important, and shows like Broke Money Hustle and even Robinhood, because you said they actually give you links, so you can ask, click why is this happening to me?
Yep.
If you can find out, because like looking through Yahoo, like so many sites just they assume that you're already an expert when you sign up. I'm not gonna say the names of some of the sites that is stock sites that have you sign up, but they kind of, okay, we got your money, you're trading stock later.
And because you're essentially using the same tools that a professional investor would be using.
Right.
Like my TD Ameritrade is that way. It's confusing as all get out.
Yeah. So they don't really, it's confusing. There's very little documentation, and what documentation is there is it's pretty
it's really dry and technical.
Yeah. So if you're like a newbie who just wanted to maybe come in and get some extra Christmas money, you're going to be like, you'll be really discouraged to get involved. So like, even looking at Yahoo here, I noticed with my Wizard stock on February 27, 2020, it says there's a 120 stock split. I can share that page if you want.
Yeah, sure. We can go ahead and bring it up.
Yeah.
And so, like, again, I have no idea what that means. But yeah, February 27, 2020. Oops. Going to try to make it blue. February 27, 2020, there's a 120 stock split. So I wonder, was that the reverse split and I didn't know about it? No one told me.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
So for every 20 shares you owned, you now own one.
Yeah.
And that's a way for them taking their 10-cent shares and making them $1.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically.
So then that would make sense then. So how many times can they do that? Do you know, Eric? How many times?
I honestly don't know, but I know for these types of things they have to get approval from the Federal Trade Commission before they do anything. I mean, you got to get approval from the Federal Trade Commission before you can list, and then you have to get accepted by these different indexes, the NASDAQ or the S&P 500 or whatever index that you're getting listed on. They have to do a vetting process with your company. Okay. So there's a lot of steps involved in order to get this. If you want to look at it a simplistic way, you've got central bankers and business people colluding with each other to kind of keep the ball floating.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the Federal Reserve is not federal and it's not a reserve. Yeah. They have absolutely no assets. Basically, what they do is they just issue debt. They say, here's an IOU. They give it to the Treasury. Treasury says, oh, thank you. Now here's your IOU. It gives you the permission to print as much currency as you want. And they just do this bond swap back and forth whenever they need to pump the economy up artificially.
I remember, and you mentioned wrestling too, and I was going to mention this back in the 90s, before I graduated high school. Before, I think WWE was just getting ready to they were considering going public, and I remember there was talk about actually trying to make each wrestler their own individual company. There was actually talk about that, and you'd be able to buy stock in the individual like wrestler, and it was an idea that never.
I own you, John Cena.
Yeah. It was an idea that never really went. I can imagine how to work with Booker T. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. There would have been so much. But I remember that it never really went past the like dirt sheet stages. But I remember being really interested in how that was going to work because they were like, well, Vince owns the names. He could do this. And it's like, so you're going to have Stone Cold Steve Austin LLC, but you can't, well, or incorporate it.
Right,
it would have been, they had Dead Manning. But anyway, it just would have been really odd to see that. You actually investing in a person in a scripted environment.
Well, let's say it'd be like investing in individual brands. Like if you look at somebody like Coca-Cola that TJ's heavily invested in, that gives out a pretty good dividend, I hear. They have Dasani water. They've got what are some of the other brands? What are some of the other brands? Vitamin water. Yep.
Yeah.
So basically, you'd be investing in just that brand that the company has, and if that brand is excelling, that's the only place you'd see any gain, I guess.
Yeah. And imagine we let give us something else to argue about. Hey man, how's your Brock Lesnar doing? Oh, man, down.
He's down because he only wants to come out on pay-per-views.
Yeah, it's real down right now, man. How's that John Morrison? Well,
but think how that would affect a company, and we keep the wrestling thing going. You know, Becky Lynch, she's semi-retired right now because she's starting a family. But if everybody just kept pumping up the Becky Lynch stock, it'd be like, you have to be on.
Yeah. It's like you can't start.
Would they contractually require the talent to have a certain amount of airtime based on their performance of their stock? It brings up a lot of moral questions, I think.
Yeah, if they win WrestleMania, then would their stock go up? And if they lose, then it would go down.
And since it's scripted, would Vince be artificially manufactured?
Yeah,
for sure.
It would be a manipulative market, like the markets are anyway.
It'd be worse. It was just, so it'd be interesting though. It'd be interesting. I guess and again, what I like about the show that you guys do here is I can come up with any question, no matter how stupid. Because I got in because GM gave me free stock. And I'm like, well, this stock market thing seems like I should be involved. So here Sony takes some money. Here, a Wizard takes some money. Again, I couldn't get into Marvel. But I didn't realize until very recently, that Converse had bought Nike.
Really? Because I haven't heard that either.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that.
Back in 2003. That's how quiet they kept it. They kept it quiet for Converse actually is owned by Nike. So, I got Chucks. I got a lot of pairs of Chucks. So, you guys might want to invest in Nike. Are there any stocks? Would you got what companies though? And I'm sorry if I'm derailing your show. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is great info.
Is there any companies that you guys wish would go public? And do you suggest being there on the first day a company goes public, or watching and waiting and seeing what happens?
I would look at it as a twofold approach. Companies typically go public because they've reached a point where they can't grow and they need to raise capital. This is the main reason why a company goes public, is it needs capital. So typically when a company starts out, you might have principal investors. It could be the people who are involved in the company are putting up their own money, or you have an angel investor, or like some of the participants on Shark Tank. Some of those guys become investors and they own a certain percentage of the company as privately owned. Well, when you reach a certain point, you can't earn any more money, so you get approval to issue stock. I think based on where your company financials are, you're allowed. They'll tell you how much stock you can issue, and they'll kind of set the price. And this is working with the stock market, the FDIC, and all this. You get all your legal ducks in a row, and you find out what you can offer at. Then you make your initial public offering. to sell the stock, and that's how you raise the capital. That's the major way you raise capital. I think of companies that I kind of wish were public. I can't really name any off the top of my head because most of what I kind of consume right now is already public.
Yeah.
The reason I asked is because I was talking to another publisher today, publisher of comic books, and we actually were talking about like trying to expand and being a part of the industry. And he said, man, some of these companies are making a lot of money, and he was wondering about if any of the crowd sharing platforms were public. And I told him I don't think so. And
no, they're both private.
And I had brought up Indiegogo here. I'm sharing the screen by it being private. And there's but there are companies that do valuations, how much it would possibly be worth in the future. But again, I mean, would that be something you would get involved in? Would you, if Indiegogo were to say, hey, we're gonna go public, would you get involved in that at all? Or
I think so. I think crowdfunding has been around long enough that it has a public conception.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be something that's trustworthy. At least the public would think so. So I think there'd be a demand for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to need to see, because there's a lot of others other than Indiegogo and Kickstarter that don't get they don't get any of the press. But as far as, because you couldn't make the platform public, but you could make the individual. So like Facebook would be a good example of, they're a platform, do a specific thing. They decided to go public. Now they have all these other, they're a public company. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely doable. Mm-hmm. And I think based on their track record so far, I think it's a good model to invest in. So I think, I probably would buy the IPO of either one of the big two, at least, if they went public.
And then and Trico, we know TJ doesn't do his due diligence. He just but
yeah.
Panic buy, panic sell.
Yeah, pretty much. What do you call it? If Hearst Media went public, I'd buy a lot of their stock. They're managed really well, and they have like cash reserves and everything. Their balance sheet and everything's just really good. So Hearst Media, I'd buy in a heartbeat. I don't even know if it would be like another company. I don't even know if it would be worth it. Would be like Harbor Freight, just because I love Harbor Freight. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know. I think that stock would probably do fairly well.
I'll tell you guys this. I know you guys are probably getting ready to wrap up, but if either of you have stock in Good Times Restaurant, it might be time to sell. This morning, I'll share my screen. This morning, and I have been paying attention to stock, but and it helps because you guys do this show, so I like to know what you guys are talking about. Did you see this morning at 10:00? Had a sharp decline. If you guys can see that on my screen.
Oh yeah, major dive.
It went up and then it started going back down again. It's all the way down. That's what happened. So
that would have been a good day trade, though, if you could get in right around 10:00.
Yeah. It's that they when you announce you're changing your mascot after several years, sometimes things happen.
Oh,
that's all I'll say.
I do have something. I wish there was a better. It was easier to invest in anime and manga. There's not a lot, at least so far from my research. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of companies that are listed on at least the New York Stock Exchange. Like Toei Animation is one that is on. This is on the Japanese stock exchange. Is not on the American one.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Chinese companies. Bilibili Entertainment, I think, that are kind of in that you can buy them on the stock exchange, but they're also investing in companies that produce anime in Japan. So,
can you invest in some of the streaming services like a Funimation or a Crunchyroll?
Well, Crunchyroll is part of Time Warner Media.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, and that's another thing because we love Crunchyroll here at the house, But Crunchyroll is kind of up in the air because since it's owned by Time Warner Media, they're starting to pull some of the programming into the HBO Max app. And there's a lot of speculation that eventually Crunchyroll is going to disappear. It's just going to be a part of HBO Max.
Right.
Funimation is a pretty poorly run company right now. If they were public, I probably wouldn't buy them. I mean, it'd be a vanity purchase, but I expect it to kind of be a loser as far as an investment goes.
Yeah, there's Studio Ghibli stuff on HBO Max right now. So.
Yeah, and that's a treat.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing about contracts and licensing, because in all other countries in the world, Studio Ghibli is on Netflix, but HBO Max has the licensing for the North American audience. So it's not on Netflix there, it's on HBO Max here.
Contracts.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. But anyway, yeah, because I've been hoping to, maybe with the Weeble, I'm not sure, but other platforms, to allow me to invest in some of these other foreign markets. Because I would buy Toei Animation, I'd buy Bandai Namco Holdings if that was available to me, but I don't think that that's on the stock market that we have.
And as frequent travelers too, have you guys thought about investing in any of the rideshare companies? Uber, Lyft?
Yeah, I thought about it, but they're not getting in. They were very negatively impacted by the thing that should not be.
Not mentioned.
Yeah.
And I know you personally, you haven't been able to get rides because people don't want to drive, and go die from the thing that should not be because they don't want to drive.
Yeah, and then especially when they can stay at home and get paid, because they can file unemployment on that. So
yeah, we'll see how the economy is once the free unemployment runs out.
Yeah, that's why I'm not buying any stocks right now, because I think when that runs out, we're going to see a huge dip, like around the end of March, like how everything had that huge dip, and I'll probably be able to pick up stocks for 30-40%.
I'm thinking sometime in July here, we're going to start seeing mortgages that aren't being paid, credit card bills that aren't being paid. We're going to start seeing defaults. So real estate's going to get hit probably the hardest, because you're going to see companies in like restaurants, mom and pop shops that weren't essential, that aren't coming back, jobs that aren't coming back.
Yeah.
And the people that work there, they can't pay their rent. So we're going to start seeing that fall out. So I look for that being a major dip here near the end of summer.
That's when I'm going to get into property rentals.
Yeah, no, it'll be a great time to buy. We'll see another boom in the foreclosure market. Yeah. Which that's an interesting thing, because you can, if you play your cards right, if you do your research, if you learn like we're trying to learn and educate ourselves, you can make money in the bad times and you can make money in the good times. So that's, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to be smart about your money. And if we're able to, if we're speaking just for myself, if I'm able to profit even in the bad times, that gives me more asset capital to where maybe I can lift somebody up and hire somebody to make my comics for me.
Exactly.
So the economy is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down. The waves come up and down, and you just got to ride it properly. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've had a pretty good show. Remember that we are not professionals of any sort, of any kind. Don't take our advice. Please consult a licensed tax professional or a licensed financial advisor. We thank our guest Varian, who is a serial entrepreneur.
We didn't even get into his businesses or anything, like his side hustles.
Yeah,
so
but
I have to have him back on one day.
We'll definitely talk more about that, because the business of running a super huge online radio station. I mean, we definitely got to have you talk about that, because there's a lot to it, and we're excited to be part of Indie Vault, part of the content that you get on the Indie Vault network, on the Roku channel. We're happy also with our partnership with being on Spotify, being on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. Please subscribe. You can catch us live on Facebook, on YouTube. Look for Broke Money Hustle there. You can tweet us at Broke Money. You can check out the Instagram, where we like to post fun definitions of different terminology in the world. and that is Broke Money Hustle on Instagram. TJ, you have anything else for us before we check out?
No, hopefully today is a good indicator of how things will be the rest of the week, and our stocks will kind of keep on going up there. And in the meantime, I would say buying the dip, but everything keeps dipping, so I'm just holding on until I see it bottom out, and then I'll start buying some more.
Yep. All right, that's great advice. All right, and thank you, and we will see you on the next broadcast. This has been Broke Money Hustle.
This is Broke Money Hustle. And now here's Broke Money Hustle with Trico and Eric.